Hey friends, welcome back to the One Year Bible Journey. I'm Pastor Cary. This is Growing in the Gospel, and this video is called the Geography of Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. So we're going to explore, using Google Earth and some photographs, the journey from Egypt to the Promised Land. And I want you to get a geographical feel for what these people were experiencing in the narrative that we read from Exodus to the end of the book of Deuteronomy. So I'm going to pull up a second screen of Google Earth, and you could do this on your own, but I'm just going to kind of walk you through the highlights of this. So the Promised Land, Canaan, is up here to the north. You see the Dead Sea, the Sea of Galilee. This is modern-day Jordan. This is modern-day Israel. Gaza, West Bank, Sinai Peninsula, Saudi Arabia, and over here to the west, you have Egypt. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and we're going to track the children of Israel from this area in Egypt where they have spent 400 years as slaves and multiplied into a group of more than 1 million people. Somewhere between 1 million and 2 million people left Egypt with Moses. Now you can really go down the rabbit hole of intense research on this. There are probably 4 or 5 sites that are candidates for the location of the real Mount Sinai. I'm going to use this hand to trace a couple of routes. The first would start here in Egypt and come down and cross the Red Sea and then come down into the Sinai Peninsula, into this area where the traditional site of the Mount Sinai is located. And then it would track the children of Israel back up north in the book of Numbers to Kadesh, somewhere in here. And then the spies go north. So that's one candidate. There's a couple more candidates for the site of Mount Sinai in this area of the Sinai Peninsula or the Negev Desert. The one I want to spend the most time on, that to me is the most fascinating, and trust me, I'm no scholar and I'm no archaeologist. I've not been to any of these sites, but I just love the story of this, and I'm going to link a video in the description from a pastor out of Santa Barbara named Dave Guzik. Dave took a team and they explored a site over here in Arabia, in southern Arabia, that really fits every necessary biblical description of the location of Mount Sinai, and it makes a lot of sense. The strongest argument against it is just the journey across this area and how could they have made that journey in the time allotted. But nonetheless, I'm going to share this particular journey with you. So what I'm going to do is tilt this map. I don't know why this keeps jerking around on me so much, and I'm so sorry. I'm going to tilt this map a little bit so we get a little bit of a three-dimensional perspective. And then we're going to zoom in and see some really interesting and fascinating topography. So let's first go with the route that goes south into the Sinai Peninsula. One of the arguments against this is that there's a theory that this was still a part of Egypt in the days of ancient Egypt and ancient Israel. That's debatable, and part of the challenge of locating all these places that are named in Exodus and Leviticus and Numbers is that the names have been lost to history. So if we go with Arabia, that would put us over here. If we go with that this peninsula was a part of Egypt, that would mean they crossed the Red Sea here, somewhere on this Gulf of Aqaba. And so, again, there's many lines of argument. But just to give you some sight lines, if the children of Israel came down south to the traditional site of Mount Sinai, that would have put them in this region. Now just take a look at the rocky barrenness of this region, and you can understand and get a sense of the significance of God providing water, God providing food, and sustaining these people in this terrible topography. And whether you go with Arabia or whether you go with Sinai Peninsula, either way, it is rugged wilderness and treacherous terrain. So when we get in closer here, this is the traditional Mount Sinai. And what I want to do, and I hope I don't make you dizzy, but I want to spin this a little bit. And then I want to tilt it a little more to give you a real sense of what this mountain is in this region. It is a very tall peak. And here we go. So let's zoom in a little bit here. And you can see that this peak rises up above the region. There's ample space around this peak for the camp to have been situated. Presently, there's a monastery at the base of this peak, and this is in the Sinai Peninsula. Now, if we zoom out of this, and if we reset our northern compass, come out of the Sinai Peninsula and go over to the alternate route. The alternate route would have the children of Israel coming out of Egypt across the Sinai Peninsula to this location here, Nuweiba Beach. And as we zoom into Nuweiba Beach, there's a potential spot here for the crossing because this area is big enough and this area is big enough. And then the wadis, the valleys that connect this crossing site over to the potential site of Mount Sinai, it would match the site of the springs and the site of the bitter waters. There's also a rock location, the split rock of Horeb would be up in this area. In fact, I want to look that up to show it to you. Split rock of Horeb. Let's see what happens here. I want to say it's over in here, but let me try this again. All right, here we are. This split rock, I'm going to show you a picture of later. But if I tilt this map again, this matches a very potential location of where there was no spring and where God instructed Moses to strike the rock in Horeb. And why does this work? It works because there's a giant rock edifice there with a huge split down the middle of it. I'll show you that in a minute. It works because this is north of the land of Midian, where Moses spent 40 years as a Bedouin nomadic shepherd. So he would have been familiar with this area. When God told him to go to the rock of Horeb, he would have known. And so it really is interesting. All right. So if we go south though from this area, and I want to pull out so you can get your bearings again. So the crossing area was up over here, the split rock here. You go a little further to the south and to the east, you come to a mountain peak called Jabal Makla. And again, I will link in the video description a link to an exposition team with Dave Guzik. It's a fascinating video where they explored all of the evidence of this region and how it really does match the biblical account of the Exodus. So I'm going to show you the highlights of that over the next few minutes. I'm going to tilt this map a little more, and we're going to zoom in. We're going to see the height of this peak towering up over the rest of the region. So you have the Holy Land straight to the north, Canaan. You have the split rock up over in this area. You've got this valley where potentially the camp of the Israelites was. And then you've got this peak of Jabal Makla, which is a candidate for Mount Sinai. Now what I want to do is spin this map a little bit. I'll try to do it slowly so as not to make you sick. Okay, we're going to tilt a little more. And then we're going to zoom in. So when we look at this area on the screen, here's the peak of Jabal Machlah. Partway down the mountain, there's an altar that could date back to the time of Moses, and it matches the description of the fact that Moses built an altar and put up some pillars for the 12 tribes. Across this valley is another altar, a broken down altar, that is the potential site of the altar of the golden calf. Interestingly enough, there are etchings of cows, Egyptian gods, on the rocks, and those etchings are found in other locations throughout this region. So it's very possible that this is the site of the golden calf. Another very interesting thing is that 4 miles north, right here where the hand is an ancient burial site. And that burial site is the site of thousands of graves of people that all died at the same time. And there's really no archaeological or historical or obvious reason for these graves to be there, but they are there, and they would date back to about this same time period. So that would make sense because of the event of the golden calf altar. They would have needed to bury the bodies of thousands of people all at the same time. The top of this mountain is thoroughly cooked. The rocks have a baked coating on them that indicates a massive fire event. The sight lines of this coming down the mountain across the valley would have made sense for Moses and Joshua, hearing the noise of war in the camp and then seeing that the people were engaged in pagan worship. And then all the way up the valley to the site of this burial location, which is right here where the hand is. So, fascinating candidate as a potential for the location of Mount Sinai. And I just love this stuff. This is just riveting to me. Either way, you can see that the two locations I've shown you are very much similar in topography. The reason I like this site, and again, I'm not an archaeologist, I'm just a student that likes to entertain the possibilities of these things. So we're looking north again. We have Jabal Machlah here. We have the split rock up here. We have the crossing site over here. Down here was the land of Midian. So it would have made sense that Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, wasn't far away, brought his sons to him, that Moses spent a good portion of his life in this region and would have been familiar with it as he was leading the people out. So I'm going to zoom back out. As you're reading the book of Exodus, you're reading of the journey to Mount Sinai, either here, or maybe up in here somewhere. And the people are there for a year or two, close to 2. And then they journey north to Kadesh Barnea, which most scholars believe is in this area, south of the Dead Sea. From there, the spies go north into Canaan. They spend 40 days spying out the land of Canaan. They go all the way up into modern-day Lebanon, up to about here. Then they come back down south, back to Kadesh Barnea. This is where the people decide not to obey God and follow him into the promised land. They decide to rebel, and they are banished for the next 40 years or 38 years to wandering the wilderness. They then journey across this desert valley south of the Dead Sea into the wilderness of Moab, which is all of this region. So the book of Numbers, the people are spending most of that time of wandering in this region of Moab. And then by the end of the book of Numbers, they have made their way north, and they're camped right in this area, which is modern-day Jordan, and they've made their way all the way up across the eastern shore of the Dead Sea, and now they're camped looking over into Jericho. They're going to send in more spies, and we're now at the book of Joshua. So I don't want to get too much further into this. I just wanted you to just get your eyes on all of this barren wilderness that God sustained his people through and carried them forward, leading them on the journey. Okay, now what I'd like to do before we wrap up is show you some photos of especially that location of Jabal Machlah in Arabia, and just get your eyes on why some students of the Bible favor that site. So if I can pull up, my first photo is a picture of the broken down rock platform that is the potential site for the altar of the golden calf. And on the rocks surrounding this site are etchings and carvings of cows, which were Egyptian gods. And this is all around this site. It's amazing. The second photo I want to show you is the altar at the base of Jabal Machlah, which could be a potential remnant of the altar of Moses. Also, there's quarried other stones. Here's another closer up shot. And then there's quarried stones in column shape. Are these the remnants of the columns that Moses set up for the 12 tribes? Perhaps. And then let's go north to the split rock of Horeb. Look at that rock. This is a towering structure in that area that stands alone. It's got an inexplicable split right down the middle of the rock. The most interesting part of this edifice is that there is evidence of water erosion coming down out of this rock and down through the valley towards the peak of Jabal Machlah and the valley where the Israelites perhaps camped. The next thing I want to show you is the pictures of the burial site, the ancient burial site with headstones, and just a couple of shots, more headstones you can see set up. And also found that these burial sites were grinding stones, which was traditional to bury when you'd bury a person. If there was some object that was theirs, you would bury or maybe put that at their gravesite. So there's grinding stones at this site as well. So just photographic evidence of this region. And if nothing else, you see the barrenness of this region and what it would have meant to dwell in a region like this for any length of time. So amazing, amazing photographs of a potential site of Mount Sinai. It's amazing. It's amazing, amazing topography. So this is just a quick geography of Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. For more information about the geography of Genesis, you can see the video entitled Geography of Genesis. I will soon be posting a video called The Geography of Jesus, or the Life of Jesus, or the Geography of the Gospels. And that's going to focus us on the nation of Israel, the land of Canaan, in the times of Jesus. And we're going to track the chronology, the basic chronology of the life of Jesus. Where did he go over the 3.5 years of his earthly life? And so you can be looking for that. So this is sort of a bonus video on the 1-year Bible journey. And as we're reading these weekly readings, I just want to give you a topographical and a geographical sense of what's going on, because so much of the Bible is geographical. And the more you can understand the geography, the more you're going to understand and put together the storyline. And so today, the geography of Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Thanks for joining me. I love to read your comments or your responses. And I will, again, put some information and links in the description of the video if you'd like to do some more research on this. And I will see you next time as we continue our journey 1 year through God's Word here on Growing in the Gospel. Thanks for joining me.